Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Construct Innovate webinar series on digital construction technologies. So this is an eight-part series. We start today on digital construction technologies and innovation digital adoption within the construction industry. So my name is Jamie Goggins. I'm co-director of Construct Innovate, which is Ireland's National Research Centre for Construction Technology and Innovation. As I said, this is a six-part series around digital construction technologies. Today, we're going to look at digital adoption in the construction industry. We've got three fantastic speakers. We've got Dr. Alan Hore, who's the co-founder and director of CiTa, and he's going to talk about digital adoption in the construction sector. He's going to reflect on successes, setbacks, and future priorities for the sector. Then we've got Micheal Tracy, who's the CEO of Acrow, and he's going to talk about digital transformation initiatives within their organization around modular construction, in particular around bridge construction. And then with Stephen Lynam, who's a technical advisor in the Office of Government Procurement, and he's going to talk to us about the public sector BIM adoption in Ireland. So we're going to have the three presentations first, and then we'll have a Q&A session after the three presenters are finished. So if you have any questions for the presenters, then please put them into the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen there, and we'll deal with the questions at the very end. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Alan. So Alan is our first speaker, who's co-founder and director of CiTa, who's going to talk about digital adoption in the Irish construction sector and some reflections from his side. So over to you, Alan.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here this afternoon to talk to you about digital adoption in Irish construction, successes, setbacks, and future priorities. I'm one of the founding directors of CiTa Ltd, formerly TU Dublin DIT. My first slide really looks at I suppose, my experiences of digital construction over the past 25 years. And it all really, I suppose, started back in 1999 in Bolton Street. There was a lot of innovation going on in the college at the time. And some of you might remember, if you're old enough, Build Online, who set up one of the first digital construction online solutions for construction companies back in 1999. And our first event is on the 19th of November. And I suppose that started the foundations of digital transformation as we know it today. And over the next 4 to 5 years, we had 2 meetings each year. And that led us to really incorporating the Alliance in 2005 after getting some support from some of the notable companies in Ireland. I suppose what we started to see then in 2005 was the emergence of building information modeling and collaborative software coming more to the fore. And in 2008, we were very thankful of the support from Enterprise Ireland to set up the Enterprise Innovation Network at the time. And that allowed I suppose, the Alliance to build a network of of various stakeholders to join the network. And we started to run more events. And then in 2008, the SkillNet network formed, and we have one of the longest established SkillNet networks in construction, operating now for 16, going on 17 years. Fast forward to 2010, we started to see more rise of the cloud, drones, data analytics. And in 2013, again, you may remember the government initiative, The Gathering. We had our first BIM gathering in 2013. And then we were commissioned by Enterprise Ireland in 2015 to look across the world to see to look at bringing some order to BIM in respect to developing an Irish capability program. That subsequently led in 2017 to the publication of the National BIM Council Roadmap. And at this time, we started to see, the expansion of robotics, artificial intelligence, and AR, augmented reality. This also culminated with the start of the CiTa Tech Live series that we run every alternate year. We all know what happened in 2020, and that really, I suppose, set things back a bit. But it gave the government time, there was various initiatives like forming the construction sector group and the important 7 pillars that PJ Rudden chairs. And that really led to the launch of the Build Digital project that I was also involved with. But the 4 pillars from the roadmap, the leadership, the education, standards, and procurement pillars were brought into Build Digital, and an additional pillar of sustainability was added. And I was involved in the successful bid for TU Dublin. And also I was very active in the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund applications for a number of years before I retired last year. And of course, Stephen will talk more about the national BIM mandate, but that is significant. And really what we started to see from COVID-19 was an accelerated use of technology, artificial intelligence, sustainability coming more to the fore, and of course, automation. And of course, the buzzword in 2024 seems to be MMC. And once again, CiTa, showing its relevance, is now managing the SkillNet MMC Accelerate scheme. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk about 3 successes and 3, I suppose, setbacks in my view, and then I'll finish looking at, say, priorities going forward. So, look, this government, this is not a political broadcast in any way, but it keeps giving really the support I believe that's needed in construction. You remember back in 2018 with the launch of Project Ireland 2040, the setting up of the special subgroup for digital adoption innovation, and the 7 pillars of that. And that really is done Trojan work. From that really emerged Build Digital, emerged Construct Innovate, and other initiatives like DASB, the Digital Academy for Sustaining the Built Environment, more recently the Building Heroes program, and this year the MMC Accelerate project. So Enterprise Ireland, SkillNet, HEA done fantastic work in driving digital adoption through the colleges and upskilling through the Springboard and the Human Capital Initiative. We also see the Build to Innovate program from Enterprise Ireland taking hold, and the new recent launch of the National Hub, which is, where one can find where the supports are. But I know Dave or Stephen will talk more about the BIM mandate, but that is significant. So I think that collectively is a success from a digital construction perspective. Now, this little country, Ireland, is doing so well. This image here really illustrates how powerful we are and how innovative we are as a little country. We're leading the way in regard to our readiness to adopt Industry 4.0 through the skills and the talent that we're developing in our colleges. And some of the company logos you see on the right there, they are absolutely blazing a trail across Europe, building data centers, building pharma facilities, and we can see even recently, Mercury setting up a separate facility in Germany, employing over 200 professionals to support the design and building of the many facilities they're building. So I think this is a tremendous success. The investment in technology and innovation in Ireland has been tremendous. And of course, we know the FDI footprint we have in Ireland as well. So again, that's another, I suppose, accelerant for digital adoption. Also, I think, and why would I pick this topic in this instance? Because, the semantics around modern methods of construction and maybe some of the more newsworthy items wouldn't say this, but I think this is a success. We're building a new sort of data demonstration park in the Midlands in Mount Lucas. Construct Innovate have a specialist webinar series for it. The first houses in Ireland to be 3D printed in concrete in Dundalk. Hardcore Technologies have done fantastic work, winning all sorts of awards for their great work, and a proliferation of reports on MMC. But if you look at the optics in the bottom of the screen here, I think there's a huge opportunity here for us to work together with these particular individuals and these groupings, and to really look at industrializing construction more. And of course, if you're going to use smart manufacturing and industrialize construction, you're going to need good tech. Now, not to be overly negative, but I think the setbacks definitely is the slow uptake by small firms. And I'm talking about firms that have anything less than 10 people or up to 50 people, if you look at the definition. Certainly, according to the ESRI recent report, we can see that Ireland's micro companies are performing below the EU average. But then we can see that the larger companies are performing above the EU average. And I think for any of you out there, there's a fantastic resource that the EU have, which is the Digitalization of Construction SMEs platform, which I'd highly recommend you look at. Huge amount of resources available there. You can do a maturity scan. There's a specialist handbook, there's case studies and training programs. Definitely something to look at. Also, the Enterprise Ireland Hub, Innovation Hub, there's great supports through Enterprise Ireland. But when looks at the National Enterprise Hub, there doesn't seem to be much for the small micro companies, one perhaps needs to be an Enterprise Ireland client to avail of the benefits. But look, it's now time for SMEs to invest into construction software, and because their survival depends very much on it. So that's one of the big setbacks in my personal view. The other big setback in my view, and I think it was a missed opportunity back in 2017 when the roadmap was produced. That roadmap, by the way, was looked right across the world at various jurisdictions, a lot of input from Enterprise Ireland and industry leaders. And it did ask for the development of a consistent, seamless, coherent digital experience for all students in Irish construction. And I believe that is not the case. There is a lot of very good programs in the Republic of Ireland, in the universities, the FETs, the ETBs, but there isn't that consistent skill set coming out. And I think all the great reports that have been produced have really said that it's a digital first approach is needed to upskill, the blue and the white collar workers in construction. So I'd like to see a competency framework developed for Ireland, which then could be adopted by the various professional institutions to level the upskilling piece. The other big setback for me, and these are kind of more macro setbacks, and that is that there's a lack of a shared vision and resources for a comprehensive nationwide digital adoption or digital transformation strategy for Ireland. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we're great in this country in duplicating what we do, and I think it's time now to come together to support a lean, green, digital transform industry. Yes, I'm saying we need a collaborative effort to unite the key stakeholders, so many of which are here today, to support our Project Ireland 2040 plan, our National Development Plan, our Climate Action Plan, our Housing for All plan, and the BIM mandate. And that needs vision, leadership to develop a national roadmap, standardize the frameworks, competency frameworks, guidelines, etc. And I think it's time now for us to work together more because we don't have a national roadmap for digital transformation in construction. We had one in 2018, and that somehow got lost. But in the installation and formation of these great entities that we have today. But I think it's time now to work together more. So just a little bit about the Alliance. We're still working away, paving a way for a smarter construction industry. We had our Tech Live event recently in Limerick where we focused on AI. We have a series of regional events. We've done over 6,000 hours of training. Over 200 companies have been supported. And we're busy with our digital skills series this year. Our next one is next Tuesday. And we've recently been successful in the SkillNet MMC Accelerate. But we are celebrating 25 years next year, but we are very open to working with other groups. I think that's important. So what am I saying? Well, I'm saying the 4 key things that we should focus on is the development of a national coordinating and resource body with a unified vision. That's collaborative partnership that supports policy and provides a national roadmap. There's too many entities doing similar things. I think it's time now that we work together. Also, there needs to be a nationwide promotion of BIM to support the BIM mandate, because as Stephen will explain, while we're focusing on the very large projects now, the smaller projects will soon come into focus. So there's an urgent need for nationwide promotion, training and support, the BIM maturity levels and guidance, and a support team in place to support that nationwide adoption. Also, we need workforce digital literary upskilling. We need a skills development program. We need to extend the Building Heroes initiative that the Ferris are running, trying to attract the next generation into our industry, to attract more diversity. We need to establish more educational partnerships. We shouldn't be competing as university. We should be working together, and we need a national competency framework. And last but not least, we need to support the SMEs. We need to make them more scalable, give them more tailored technology packages. Low cost, high impact tools is what's needed. We need to give them money, and we need to give them mentoring. So that really leads to the conclusion of my talk, but this is an interesting image I finish with. And this was a vision of construction 115 years ago. The utopia 2020, what it would look like. And you can see that they're talking here about industrialization. They're talking here about, smart manufacturing and so on. So it's interesting, isn't it? 115 years later, it's coming full circle. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Alan. This is a brilliant talk. Great highlights of some of the successes, but also like a real true kind of reflection in terms of some of the setbacks, but also showing what that priorities need to be in the future. So we'll pick up on some of those in the Q&A afterwards. So if anyone has any questions for Alan, please put them into the Q&A at the bottom of the screen there. We'll pick them up at the very end. So we're going to pass over to our next speaker, who's Micheal Tracy, who's CEO of Acrow, and he's going to talk about the digital transformation initiatives that they've undertaken in their organization and the huge impact that it has had on their organization and the way that they produce their products and increased productivity. So over to you, Micheal.
Percy, thanks very much for inviting me to this. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to present here. I'm Micheal Tracy, CEO of Acrow Global Limited, and it's a good chance for us as a company, an SME, really to talk about our experience of digital techniques and our digital transformation and how we've used it. And if I tell you a little bit about ourselves first, we're the world leader in the design and manufacture of prefabricated modular bridging. And we've got about 300 people. We've got 2 manufacturing facilities in the UK and the US. And we work worldwide. We've worked in over 150 countries. And we would see ourselves as experts in advanced steel technology. This is just one flag for each country, so you can see we've been all over the place. And just as an example of where we're working at the moment, obviously the UK and the US, Greece, Ghana, Uganda, Angola. We're doing work in Papua New Guinea and Brazil. So we've got a wide range from what we do. So in terms of, we make steel bridges and we make a number of different bridges. But basically, it's all high quality, high strength steel. Now, the one thing about being able to export all around the world, it's really important that it fits together. So we've used robots for quite a number of years. And, just in terms of productivity, and it was interesting listening to Alan there, we upgraded our robots in the last number of years, and we were getting at least a 40% productivity improvement for that. So it just shows you the advances that are made. In terms of these bridges are robust. They're easily configurable to take quite a lot of load, long span. And the big thing is it's accelerated bridge construction. We can put these in very quickly with minimum labor, with just some supervision. So an example of our markets, urban and rural. The top right is a job we did in Canada. I think the middle is Pakistan. And the bottom one is flyover in Sri Lanka, which was, I think, done in 90 days, to a very rural bridge in Scotland, as an example. We also work in construction, mining, utilities. That's very important for us. These bridges can take huge loads. So, for example, we're working a lot with the new green industries, where a lot of really large, for example, motors have been brought in and transported on our bridges. We're working on HS2 in the UK, and we do a lot of traffic detours in the US and Europe. It's contingency, emergency, military are another sector. And obviously, you just need to look at the news to know that emergency bridging is obviously required much more than it was. The top left is a job after a hurricane in Puerto Rico. We were able to put that bridge in virtually a few days to overbridge. The one on the left is a bridge we did for the United Nations World Food Programme in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh for the Rohingya Muslims. And in a lot of countries, the military are the installation partners. So they actually deliver bridges in places like Malaysia. And last year, we've done 30 bridges in Ukraine, which we're very proud of. So we both sell and rent bridges worldwide. And to finish just talking about ourselves, it's a very basic technology in a lot of ways. We have a launch nose in front of our bridges, and we push them out. But the thing about it is really important that they're robust and that it's stronger and longer and more capacity than what's available really. So we looked at how we could improve things. And the big thing for us was we looked at digital improvements and digital transformation really on the back of really three pillars. One was helping us with innovation, helping us be more efficient, and also a real customer focus. And, you know, just, for example, this roadmap is really just going back to, I'm old enough to remember when there was drawing offices with drawing boards in, to where we are now with robotics and collaboration. And I think that's an example of where we were. The first thing we looked at was from a customer point of view. And I think we wouldn't be unusual in this, that lots of companies have legacy systems, and the danger of that, it tends to be siloed. And we looked at mapping a customer journey from first contact to actually an installation. And sometimes we were surprised how we were able to do anything at all, because we started, people were sharing stuff on emails, possibly sometimes working on different revisions. So we looked at this idea of having a common platform, a single source of truth. Now, again, I'm sure plenty of people have this already, but we use BIM docs, and it was quite a transformational point of view to have this single source position that we could do from the very start to our guys on site being able to communicate, being able to access that on site, and actually uploading updates from there. So that was a really big improvement. Now, we've always modeled our bridges, and we've moved outside construction software. We've actually used gaming software here for this. And on the left-hand side is a traditional sort of bridge that's past its sell-by date. And there's a new bridge being built, but there's a detour bridge. So we would see that as quite a typical type of project. The one on the right, that bridge is actually a 3-span post-tension concrete bridge. It was the first post-tension bridge, concrete bridge in the UK, no longer fit for purpose, and we were able to put in a 90-meter clear span. Now, with the visuals we did, and the top on the left and the bottom are the visuals, we were able to work with the councils on their consultation. So, you know, it is very good to be able to show people what we do. And I think this is an example of a bridge in Canada before and the actual afterwards. So we've always prided ourselves on the realistic nature of our renders. So some other techniques that we're using, we use virtual reality, and that's a very useful way for customers to actually be able to interact and understand their bridging. You know, we either send them a model and they have a headset, or they come here and they can sort of walk around the bridge and play around with it, and it's useful. And augmented reality, again, Alan mentioned that. We've started to use that, and we think that's of huge importance going forward, and we're exploring that in quite a big way. We developed an online configurator. I mean, anyone who's tried to buy a car recently, you know, you can configure it. We did the same with our bridge. If you go on our website now, you can design your own bridge, and it comes up with a 3D model, and you can, again, play around with that, and that's useful. And the other thing we've done is, like a lot of companies that send installation manuals, sometimes they're so big and cumbersome, you almost need a wheelbarrow to carry them around on site. And that's not the way people absorb information any longer. So we now use interactive installation guides, and that's been hugely useful. People have an iPad, and they can actually look at a position and how they put stuff together. And we're looking at, that's where I mentioned augmented reality. We're looking at where we can actually use it much easier, where there's a QR code or whatever, or you just point at a particular part of the bridge and it actually explodes it, so you can really see what you're doing. So we started to develop that, and that's going to be ongoing. We also 3D print all our prototypes, and that piece in the middle is an example of a end post from our one of our bridges to a launch nose. That would be 5 meters in height. And rather than actually make a full scale and then have to amend it, we were able to actually look at how it's produced beforehand. Again, useful. We also do some 3D printing of some ancillaries like deck plugs for the bridge. So again, you know, it's a useful way for us to continue to innovate. I mentioned that we're very keen on our renders being realistic. We use the built environment modeling. So we actually use the actual terrain using InfoWorks. And that's an example of a town in Fiji. And we're able to use bridges that it's quite useful to be able to actually not just have a good looking model, but actually means that you can see the actual terrain, so that you can actually look at the road alignment and do a lot of surveys from the models we have. So we found that really useful. Again, laser scanning and point clouds is something that's been around quite a while, but an example here would be where we need to survey an existing structure. Very difficult to do traditionally. We did a laser and point cloud and just incorporate that into our model. Again, quite a useful piece of work we did. We increasingly are using drones. We do a lot of inspections all around the UK and also internationally. And, you know, that example is a small bridge in London where to actually get underneath that would have been expensive, but we were able to actually use a drone. We're currently, we develop quite a lot of projects as well. We're doing a 100 bridge in Africa at the moment, and we're using drones to actually survey the areas beforehand. And we also use Starlink so that we have a connected team no matter where they are in the world, and that's been very useful. So all our site advisors are equipped with drones, and it's been useful. I think one of the things we're very interested in and excited about is remote site access. And what this is basically, if there's parts of the world we find it difficult to get people into, you can send them some glasses really that they wear with a small, a computer on their back, and you can actually see through their eyes. And you can actually mark up the structures, and they can see where you've marked up. They can walk around to it. You can send them drawings and models, and they can actually pull them out and put them in the periphery vision. And this has been extremely useful. We've used it in a number of projects, and we'll continue to do that. So effectively, you're there when you're not there, and that's been extremely useful for us. So as an example of some of the techniques we're using, we mentioned the background tool was all about how to improve innovation, and it certainly has done that. Efficiency, again, it's made us much more efficient. We put a lot of investment in technology, and it's really paying off. But the customer focus is the key thing. It's made it so much easier for us to work with customers, and I think that's something we're going to continue with. So what's next for us is, like everybody, it's an increased focus on sustainability. We're ISO 14064, so we know what we do. We've got a carbon plan for ourselves. We now need to look at scope 2 and scope 3, and we're using technology to look at whole life carbon costing and what that means. I think generative design, we've done a little bit of that, and that's going to be becoming more into some very wacky stuff that comes out of that, but it's something that we think we need to do more of. We've started with digital twins, really to backdate our catalog so we can actually have a much more user-friendly understanding of what we've done before. Equally with our facilities, it's useful to have a digital twin of the factories before you put in investments, so you can actually see how things work rather than just take out stuff and put them in and make mistakes. And I think the other thing is just continuing with collaborative technologies. I think our industries, they're not necessarily collaborative enough. It's adversarial by nature at times, and I think that has to go, and we all have to start working more together. And certainly we've found, and we're continuing to use technologies that are much more collaborative, both for ourselves and customers. And the other one is exploring the benefits of AI. We're starting on that journey as well, and that's so important. Somebody said, if you're not using that, it's like unfair competition. So I hope that gives you an idea. We've embraced quite a bit of this as a SME, if you like, and we found them very useful. So thanks very much for that, and I'll stop there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Michael. That's very inspiring. I suppose showing what digital tools that have been used in Acrow within your company in delivering bridges around the world, and a whole range of technologies there showcased, from BIM to robotics, virtual reality, augmented reality, 3D printing, the building environment modeling, laser scanning, point clouds, I can't remember what else, drones, inspections, remote site assistance, some amount of tools. But I think, that emphasis on that the customer focus is the key, and, not just using digital tools for the sake of digital tools, but they're either there because they're going to make it easier to interact with your customer, make it easier to deliver, or increase productivity, or so on in there. And then, interested on the future aspects in terms of how they might support you in terms of your decarbonisation and delivery through collaborative technologies and generative design and AI. Okay, so we're going to go to our third speaker, who is Stephen Lynam, who's the technical advisor in the Office of Government Procurement, and he's going to walk us through the public sector BIM adoption in Ireland. And as I said, if anyone has any questions, just put them in the Q&A function at the bottom and we'll deal with all the questions at the end. So over to you, Stephen.
So my presentation today is on the BIM requirements in the Capital Works Management Framework. And again, I'm delighted to be able to participate in the Construct Innovate webinar for the digital adoption in construction industry. It's a really hot topic at the moment, and it's something that we all need to collaborate in order to deliver a true digital nature to the construction sector. So just to go through the webinar today, it'll just be an introduction. I'll talk about the BIM mandate, the Capital Works Management Framework implementation strategy, training, and the digitization of the CWMF. We have a pilot project on board, and then the opportunities for the Irish construction sector. Public Works Infrastructure Procurement, it's managed by the Capital Works Management Framework, or commonly known as the CWMF, and it uses public works contracts. Standards have been imposed on the Capital Works Management Framework by ministerial decree. Ministers Donoghue and Smith announced those on the 4th of July in 2023 for BIM adoption. So following on from that, then there were BIM requirements were introduced by mandate into the CWMF suite of contract documents from the 1st of January this year. And it's commenced with large-scale projects, projects that are in excess of a value of €100 million that have commenced appraisal stage on or after the 1st of January 2024. The plan is then to cascade down to projects below 1 million over a 4-year period. This revealed our BIM timeline for the introduction of projects. So at the top of the dates that you see there are for the design phases, and below those dates are when the contract and supply chain are going to be required to have BIM as part of the development of the procurement of any government funded project in excess of 50% funding from the state. And to try and sort of bring that into a more visualized, I suppose, process, we're looking at here at the BIM adoption timelines. So at the moment, this is where we are. We have commenced the implementation of BIM requirements through the mandate for projects in excess of 100 million, where a design team has been appointed on or after the 1st of January in 2024. So very shortly, we'll be starting the second phase of that. So contractors that are engaged on a project that has commenced design appraisal from the 1st of January 2025 will be required to have BIM as part of their delivery phase. And also on that same date, we'll have the design teams appointed for projects of a value of 20 million, of greater than 20 million, and less than 100 million will also be included in the next step. The reason this was done is we believe in the current, I suppose, industry where construction is being digitized. The skill sets for that reside with the larger companies at the moment. And the whole idea is that the larger companies will see the value in delivering some of the smaller projects and bringing that skill set of BIM management that they have down through projects of lesser values over a period of 4 years. And again, we work all the way across. In 48 months' time, we'll have all projects less than €1 million that are to be delivered by the state will have BIM requirements in them. As I said, that's the phased rollout. So to try and give people an understanding of how public procurement works, this is a brain dump from myself as all the intricacies of how a project gets from, I suppose, concept right through to delivery and management in use. And in the middle there, you see the CWMF procurement. Currently, it has 5 stages, which is stage 1 to stage 5. We do need to look at having a separate appraisal stage in order to be able to identify the data that's collected at that stage in a project to help it progress through all of the remaining stages. And lastly, then the in-use stage of stage 6 is going to be a new stage that will help asset managers deal with how the building is performing in its life cycle. So around its carbon usage, carbon footprint, and reuse. And when you look at all of this, you see public infrastructure guidelines. That used to be the public spending code. It has 5 stages. So for projects in excess of 20 million, all 5 of those stages apply. For projects less than 20 million, there's 3 of those stages. A couple of them are skipped, but in essence, the 5 stages will apply. And then it just shows the integration of how design teams have to assemble pre-tender information, and the volume of information and the amount of data that's actually produced that gets lost when a project is handed over after construction. But this data is absolutely essential for those people to be able to manage that asset moving into the future. And down at the bottom here, we see building information modeling as a process that it has the capabilities to be able to manage all of that data that has been harvested over the life cycle of a project. There's currently 5 stages, as I've said. There's 11 contracts, 20 model forms, arbitration rules, 8 information to tenderers, 4 forms of tenders, 4 conditions of engagement, 4 information to tenders for contractors, 6 consultancy model forms, consultancy arbitration rules, 6 SAQs, 19 appendices, and 10 supplements, 27 guidance notes, and 1 glossary. So you can see that there is a huge amount of information available in the CWMF, and it's in a semi-digital state, so they're all downloadable forms. The transition that we're trying to make here is we're actually trying to digitize this entire process, that through one platform, you will be able to transition through all of these stages in the right sequence and without missing documents or missing information. And by being able to do that, we will be able to produce a better quality tender and procurement documentation, which will help and assist contractors in delivering high quality projects with good, high quality information available to them at the tender stage. How are we going to do this? So the implementation strategy that we have has 2 aspects to the implementation strategy. The first aspect is to impose mandatory standards for information across all stages of a project lifecycle. And that includes everybody that's involved in construction projects, right from the initial administration concept, right through to the end user in use, how the project is performing and being managed. What does that mean? It means that everybody is going to have to go through a training program to understand how that information is assembled and put together. Because if people are not trained on how information is shared and what information is necessary, the information that goes in will not be relevant to the job, and that old expression of rubbish in, rubbish out will soon bear it forth. And again, the clients, as part of their organizational information requirements, they need to develop training plans for their staff to manage the projects that they are responsible for. And we focused on the clients initially because without a client understanding what they're asking for, the variance in the returns from BIM will be very disparate. And it's absolutely essential that the clients understand this. And this is why we focused that the BIM delivery for the imposition of standards has to be client-driven. Second aspect then is supporting public bodies in the adoption of BIM. We've ran a series of master classes in relation to what the client's functions are in relation to the ISO standards. 3 of those have been completed. And for any civil servants out there, they're available on the OGP One Learning portal. If you log in, those webinars are available there. I am trying to make them available to the general public, but I'm having some issues with GDPR at the moment. But I hope to have those resolved in the near future. Build Digital have also ran 3 information management webinars based on the templates that they have produced to help people get started on their BIM journey. And we have a public sector BIM group which is active. So any member of a public sector organization is welcome to join that group. The whole group ethos is around sharing information on their BIM, the journey for their BIM implementation. And it's a really good way of sharing resources and problems and issues that we have, and it helps us identify them and look at where we can relieve the bottlenecks that are happening. So aspect one, what does aspect one means? What does it impose into standards for information across the life cycle of a project? And the first part of it is the ISO 19650 series are adopted into the CWMF, and they are now a requirement. The second is the Uniclass 2015 or Uniclass. This is a classification system which identifies objects within data models. Now, they can be visual data models or they can be data banks. The IFC is our exchange format. So again, this is a worldwide international standard for sharing models. And then we have the ICMS. So between the ICMS and the Uniclass system, when those two systems are synergized, you have full financial control, a reporting mechanism for anything that's developed in a data model. So if something in a data model is changed and it's marked to the ICMS, it has the potential to be able to have an immediate impact on your costings. So you can manage your costings far, far better. And then setting the minimum project information requirements for all stages of the CWMF. So what this really means is that these standards mapped across how the CWMF contract documents work is a requirement. And the appointing party or the contracting authority must specify the level of BIM required for each project information drop. So BIM needs and requirements. And again, this goes back to the training that we've done on how to help the clients understand what they need to be specifying in BIM, so they're not getting information that they don't necessarily need. And aspect two, supporting the public bodies. We have a series of masterclasses concluded that was for the for the civil and public service only. As I said, I am working on getting those rolled out. We are looking at a protocol. It's under consideration by ourselves with our legal team at the moment, specifically for the Irish jurisdiction. Developing minimum standards for pre-qualification. That's been done between the OGP, Build Digital, and NSAI. We are in the process of developing pre-contract BIM execution plan and a post-contract BIM execution plan as templates, so it will help people understand how to proceed with BIM implementation. So there's also been BIM specific guidance and templates. The OGP have been in collaboration with Build Digital or developing BIM templates for use with the public works contracts. They're available on the Build Digital website, and the link is there for anyone that wants to go and have a look. The templates at the moment include the EIR, the OIR, the AIM, and the PIR. And they're in Excel formats. So anyone familiar with Excel will be able to have a look through those. The plan long term will be to further digitalize them through a true digital portal. Training. So this for me is the key for any stakeholder involved in construction projects. And as we've heard from the previous speakers, there's a lot of, I suppose, non-collaborative entities out there trying to promote good productivity and good things to do. But we need to synergize all that. And the only way we can do it is we need to train our staff. We need to be able to say to one another, you know, this is how we're doing things. This is how other people want to do them. But together, we need to be able to move forward. And without having an understanding of what you're trying to do, that will be a very difficult task. So training, there's a link on the Exchange Hub on the Build Digital project portal. And it's linked to the Build Digital Education and Training Inventory and the DASB.ie. So they have about 300 courses in there. They're available for anybody that's involved in BIM implementation. and that will be across administrative people to technical professionals, right through to tradespeople and contractors. And then we also are looking at certification of BIM capability through NSAI. So you'll be able to get an accreditation to say your organization is BIM ready. And again, this is kind of just an overview of the people that we're involved with, our stakeholders. So we take our instructions from the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform and National Delivery. And again, that comes down through the OGP. So that's been led by myself. We work very closely with Build Digital, and the lead there is Mr. Robert Moore. And then we have subgroups. So Build Digital have a private sector BIM group and that feed back into them. The information comes from Build Digital back to ourselves in the OGP, and we disseminate that information through working groups that we have of technical people in the public sector area. And we've two groups in them. We've people in the public sector area who are just commencing BIM for the first time, but we also have some users that are very advanced. And we tend to share the information between the two of those to help them on their BIM journey. Training, as I said earlier on, is so important. Who needs it? Everybody does. Automation through processes is the key thing. And again, here I like this workflow that Plannerly developed. And it just shows how, I suppose, information management transitions through parties within a contract, right through to the end. And again, there's a very high level overview of what happens, but the appointing party, which is the client, you know, they're going to appoint a team of people to deliver the projects, technical professionals, that goes into the lead appointing party. And then the appointed parties on top of that come through the contractor, how it's done, mobilized, moved back in, information is validated and checked all the way through the process. And then at the end of it, we look at what can we learn to do better for our next project. So the client has to understand and support the BIM mandate. The project concept comes from the administration side, which normally don't actually see the workings of the project. To them, that's a very foreign thing. But again, in order to be BIM fluent, we need to make sure that all of the dots for project delivery are ticked. And then you have the project design, so it affects all the professionals, architects, engineers, quantity surveyors, M&E engineers, and anyone that has an input into the design. Project delivery then looks at the contractors and the supply chain. What do they need to know? What do they need to be able to manage? And then the in-use piece is the facilities management and maintenance personnel. And then the end of life or repurpose. That goes back to the client, the carbon footprint, what they can recycle, what they can't recycle from the project. All has to be considered through the entire project lifecycle. So digitalization of the CWMF is the next thing I'm going to move on to. The suitability assessment questionnaire is our pilot project. At the moment, it has two forms. The part A is where part one is filled in by the contracting authority and part two is filled in by the bidder or the contractor. It goes through a whole approval process. There's an evaluation done to make sure that the contractor has the capability to deliver a project. Then it gets approved. They may go to a tender list. And our plan is to digitize this process. So at the moment, for a project that's roughly valued at around 7 million euros, there's about between 700 to 900 hours involved between all the personnel in actually going through this suitability assessment questionnaire, from its development right through to when it gets returned to select contractors that will be of suitable status to be able to deliver a job. So there's about 25 documents involved in this process altogether, and we want to integrate them into a digital portal where the submission can be done online. It'll also have the capabilities to have what we call client passports. So there'll be a client passports for contracting authorities. So they will have all of their information uploaded into that system once. So every time they use it, anywhere information is required, it'll automatically populate the documents for them. So it's the enter only once principle. The same passport will apply to contractors, so contractors can log into the web portal, they can save their company information up there, and effectively it acts like a repository for their CVs, so they only have to answer the questions that are being asked specifically about the project, and it will automate the process. I expect probably a time saving on this of in excess of about 40%. So there'll be a significant reduction in the number of hours. And it means then that contractors that want to be able to bid on projects will be able to do it relatively quickly. And the passport then, as I said, applies to the tender bidder as well. And it will also be able to learn from previous projects. So if you have a previous project that's similar in nature, you can actually have the information copied over that you use from that into the new one, but it will not copy over any of the project specific details. As I said, it's the enter only once principle. It'll do a submission validation. So before you even submit the document, it will actually tell you whether you meet the criteria or whether you don't. And it can be used for all public works projects. And it will inform the digital plan to digitalize the works procurement. That's information that we're going to be able to use. As I said, the CWMF has about 300 documents available in it. There's 11 forms of contract in there. And there's it's a minefield for most people to understand all of them. So it'll actually inform you as you populate the portal. It will actually develop your procurement strategy and procedure and actually give you the right documents that you should be using with the right contracts. So the opportunities it's going to create for the Irish construction sector, it'll develop a new approach to asset acquisition. It develops new skills for the project design teams, also for the project delivery teams, and it will develop new skills for asset management. Something that has been brought in with the climate action plan in relation to carbon footprint management and to end of life management of assets. It's going to create new career paths for information management. And this will apply to design teams and to contractors and also to the clients. A unified approach for public and private sector projects, and it will bring our construction sector into a digital domain. Thank you for your time. This is the end of my presentation. Look forward to your questions.
Brilliant. Thanks, Stephen. That's a great overview of the BIM public BIM mandate related to the Capital Works framework. I think many people will be delighted to make some of those processes more automated with those 300 odd documents that are there in the Capital Works framework in there, and the project there in digitizing the Capital Works framework, and hopefully that estimate of the 40% time saving will be achieved. I think many people will be delighted with that, but also just making it more streamlined in there and taking out some of that uncertainty about what you actually fill in as well. So when you digitize it, oftentimes it makes it easier then, and then you have a template and the passports that people are used to being able to understand and see and consistent across. Okay, so that's our three presentations. Huge thanks to Alan, Michael, and Stephen.